Hey guys, Collin Chi, certified nutritional consultant, numerologer, bringing you guys another talk today. Today, I'm going to be doing Ralph Waldo Emerson's numerology chart. All right, so for those of you who aren't very well acquainted with numerology, this might give you kind of a picture of what a numerology chart would be like for you, and give you some insight into one of the most well-known American essayists in history, who had a big impact on intellectual culture of his time and the present still. So, for those of you who don't know, Ralph Waldo Emerson, born 1803 to 1882, he died at age 78, which is equal to a number 6, which I'll talk about. This guy was a great thinker, a great intellect, a well-known writer, poet, essayist, philosopher. Okay, so these are the main things that Emerson was to a lot of people. He also started Transcendentalism, had the Transcendentalist Club in his time, which is all about obeying your intuition and believing more in intuition rather than experience, believing kind of more along the lines of romanticism, aligning a lot with the Romantic movement, and German mysticism and things like this. It was autonomy of the individual, ultimate freedom of the individual, free will. These are the kind of things that Emerson believed in. I'm going to be going through some of Emerson's, a few quotes from some of Emerson's essays also, that illustrate him numerologically. So let's jump into his numerology chart here, because there's a lot to go through. It's going to be really illuminating, really interesting, really enlightening about this well-known figure in American culture. So let's get to it, folks. Ralph Waldo Emerson, okay? Here we go. Ralph Waldo Emerson. Okay, today's March 10th, 2015, which is a number one day. I don't know if you can see that, but today's the number one day. He was a writer. He's a Gemini. Okay, you probably can't see those little notes, but they're more for me. You should be able to see everything else here. He's a Gemini sun sign. He's a Leo moon and a Libra ascendant. And he's a Cancer medium coeli, or also known as midheaven. So Ralph Waldo Emerson, okay? Let's see here, Mr. Ralph Waldo. 9, 1, 3, 7, 8, 5, 1, 3, 4, 6, 5, 4, 5, 9, 1, 6, 5. Okay, these are the numbers of each of these letters, which is equal to a number 1. Okay, number 1, destiny number. Okay, this is his destiny number. Let me erase that a little bit so you can see that a little better. Okay, number 1. Okay, destiny number. Okay, number 1, destiny number. Okay, the destiny number is what your soul set out to accomplish before leaving Earth. Okay, it's one of your primary core numbers. It makes up about 30% of you. Okay, it's probably the second most important number. We're going to do the life path number. We're going to do the maturity number. We're going to do the soul urge, the personality number. Really get an insight into this guy. All right. So destiny number 1 is really associated with the self, ego, okay, independence, things of that nature. Okay, self, ego, independence. Number 1 is all about Self, ego, independence. It's aggressive. It is ruled by the sun. It is ruled by the sun and also Mars energy here. You can think about Leo and Aries. Very proud, very aggressive, assertive, individual, single-minded, very, very passionate. It's associated with fire. It is initiatory. It's very initiative. It's the initiating spark. It is very much creative and self-expressive. It really wants self-expression. And it really wants to do its own thing and be its own person. They can also be somewhat intolerant, somewhat impatient, somewhat dominant, things like this. So immediately we see this in Ralph Waldo Emerson because this is a guy that was a champion for individualism. Okay, individualism was the biggest part of who he was, I think, out of anything. You know, he wrote the essay Self-Reliance. Okay, self-reliance, that's what number one is all about. So always being a champion for the individual. He mentions, for instance, to believe your own thought, to believe that what is true for you in your private heart is true for all men, that is genius. Okay, trust thyself. Okay, every heart vibrates to that iron string. Okay, you hear self-reliance. Okay, this is from self-reliance. Okay, you've got whoso would be a man must be a nonconformist. Okay, number one is a leader. They're ambitious. They are all those kind of Leo, Aries, awesome, interesting energies. Very headstrong, things like this. So, really, really cool. Willpower, leadership, like I said, determined. They're very determined. They can be bossy. They can be popular, though, and likable, but also sometimes ruthless. Short-tempered sometimes, insensitive sometimes, associated with sports and sales. They have a refined sense of touch with fabrics. They need to work on being more tolerant, being more sensitive, being more tactful, and controlling their ego a little bit more. However, this is his destiny, so this is what he accomplished before leaving Earth. This was the big foundation. You could call the American Scholar one of his main lectures and most famous lectures as the Intellectual Declaration of Independence. Okay, that's what Oliver Wendell Holmes said about him, either junior or senior. I think senior said about the American Scholar. So really interesting. Okay, number one. Okay, let's get into the life path. Okay, his life path. Okay, his birthday was 5/25/1803. Okay, May 25th, 1803, which is 5/7, 5/7 and 3, which is equal to a 6. Okay, life path, also known as the learning lesson. Life path number 6. Okay. Life path number 6. Okay, this is the style you walk, or the style you live and the path you walk in life. Okay, the experiences you're going to go through. Yes, his destiny was the individual to leave that behind, but his actual day-to-day existence and path in life is number 6. So number 6 is all about home, family, responsibility, as well as domesticity, as well as creativity. Okay, creativity. It is the caretaker. Caretaker. Okay. So, home, responsibility, creativity, caretaker. This is apparent in This is really apparent in the amount of marriages he had and the amount of children. Okay, he had 4 children, and he was married twice. So he had a lot of domestic responsibility. Family. He was very family oriented in a lot of ways. Home, family. Of course, he was a very creative mind. Number 6 is on the mind plane in the Pythagorean birth chart. Number 1 is actually on the physical, doing, active kind of plane, the doers, the practical doers. 6 is more the mind. So we see a lot of mind here, imagination. It's ruled by Venus. Number 6 is Venus. Okay, Venus, Uranus, Saturn, and the moon I see mainly in the energy of number 6. Okay, and actually if you look at Emerson's astrology, also Uranus is his main dominant planet. Uranus and the moon are his 2 main dominant planets, and then comes Venus, and then comes Mercury. These are the main dominant planets in his astrology chart. So I see a lot of those elements in number 6. Okay, so number 6, they're very compassionate, they're unselfish, they're dutiful, they are very harmonious, things like this. Very associated with service, the caretaker. Okay, he's caring for all these people, right? Service, they have a great judge of ethics and morality, and good judge of character, things like this. They are actually very patient, tolerant, so kind of opposite of number 1 in that way. They're very determined, they're very perseverant, as is 1, very determined, very perseverant. Not necessarily perseverant, but very determined and ambitious, number 1. The legal system, perfume, beauty, smells, are sensual, deep emotions, worry, anxiety, fear, stress. The kidneys. Okay, we see the kidneys. Venus rules Libra. Libra is associated with the kidneys, so we see Libra here. Okay, marriage, birth. So he had all these kids, right? He birthed. He was associated with birthing 4 children. Very generous. So generosity is an important part. Leo is one of his dominant signs. Libra, it goes Libra, Leo, and then Cancer are actually his most dominant signs. Libra, Gemini, and then Leo. Okay, Libra, Gemini, and then Leo are his most dominant signs in astrology. Okay, so we see the Gemini with the mind here. Again, we see the Leo with the generosity, the unselfishness. We see the Libra with the balance, with the Venus quality, the sensuality, the justice, the scales, right? Creativity. These people are also usually pretty diplomatic and tactful, but they're all about the home, the family, domesticity, and things like that. So very self-sacrificial. So you see an opposition there, being self-sacrificial versus all about the self here. So there's this tug of war between him already between these 2 energies, right? Being responsible for a bunch of kids and being free and to do whatever you want and your own individual and not tied down by anything. So we see that already. So let's do his soul urge, which you derive from the vowels of the name. His soul urge is equivalent to a number 6 also. Okay, soul urge number. Okay, the soul urge number is the hidden motivation. Okay, the hidden motivation of Emerson is to have that home and have that family and be of service to mankind. Again, Uranus is one of the planets that rules number 6 as well, but Venus being the main one. Venus is poetry, right? Emerson was a poet. His soul urge is to write poetry and beauty and art, and he's motivated by those things and to see beauty in nature, right? One of his most famous and first essays, his first biggest essay was nature. Okay, seeing beauty in nature. Emerson can be associated with pantheism. He's more like he sees God in nature. And he's all about believing in intuition rather than experience. A romantic kind of guy. That's Venus. A lot of that is Venus. Again, you also see the moon in number 6, the caretaker. Moon being, moon being emotions and things. So he's also somewhat emotional, but mainly you see Venus and Uranus. Uranus is the main planet in his chart. It's the humanitarian, service to all mankind, right? So since I wrote home, responsibility, creativity, and caretaker for that number 6, this one, all right, service. All right, poetry, right, art, imagination. He's in the line with imagination rather than experience. He believes wholeheartedly in the powers of the mind to receive the divine wisdom over the power of experience to give you wisdom. So let's just leave it at service, poetry, and art. Okay, interesting. Emerson, we're seeing a lot of number 6s in you so far. Number 6, I also do see some Saturn in number 6, okay? So that can be an interesting take on it. In astrology and numerology, the planets don't exactly match quite the same. There's a number of planets associated with each number because there's actually fewer numbers in numerology than there are numbers in astrology, because there's 12 signs in astrology, whereas there's only 9 numbers in numerology, not counting the master numbers. So we have that. Let's move on to his personality, which is derived from the consonants in the name. His personality is equivalent to a number 4. Okay, interesting. Number 4, personality number. Okay, number 4 is all about work, structure, organization. Okay, Emerson was a decently organized guy. He had extensive note-taking abilities and extensive volumes of journals that he was very well organized with. He also has the arrow of the planner, which shows method and logic and organization, ability to organize events well. He was the organizer for the Transcendental Club, the big social kind of intellectual movement in his Concord, Massachusetts area. Organization, work. You can see this present in his philosophy because work, he really championed work too. He was a big fan of working, doing the work that you were meant to do with your life, not just general work, not materialistic kind of money grubbing kind of work, but doing the work that you're meant to be doing, and listening to your intuition, listening to that divine intelligence that's open to each one of us, that can teach us higher than experience can and education can. He's all about the subjective more than he is the objective. But work, structure, okay, organization. Okay, number 4 is they're detailed, they're efficient, it's success. It's also associated with money. They are very much practical, very focused, again, very organized. They can be stubborn, they can be the workaholic. They're also the doers because they are on the physical plane in the Pythagorean birth chart, which is a more practical doing kind of number. Okay, stubborn, rigid, sometimes egocentric. They're the builders. They're conservative sometimes. And number 4 is ruled by Uranus. Okay, so you have this humanitarian Uranus quality kind of to this number 4, though, at the same time. You also have this intention to build a foundation for the future and to kind of be rigid and stuck in the box. So his personality in some ways, but his personality is also Libra influenced because his ascendant is Libra. Okay, so that's where you need to look at astrology, not just numerology, because it gives you other dimensions to a personality. Okay, so but number 4, like I said, looking at what else I missed here, they need to be more flexible. They need to play a little bit more and relax a little bit more, not be the workaholic that they are. So, yeah, it's ruled by Uranus. I see Uranus and I see Saturn and I see Mars here. It's a female energy. So you got female. You've got female, and male. So far, predominance of female energy in the chart. Okay, number 1 is male energy. Number 6, okay, I already went through that. These are female. This is male. You got 2 physical, practical, active kind of numbers. And then you've got a more mental vibration here. So far, pretty balanced with that. Number 6 can sometimes be more reserved. They can be sometimes actually closed off. But again, this is his hidden motivation. He does have that Cancer midheaven. So you could see that he's almost motivated to be family oriented like a Cancer would be with the number 6 here. So yeah. Next number, let's do the Pythagorean chart here. So you take these numbers down here. We've got a 1 here. We've got a 2. We've got a 3. Okay, we're using his birth date here. We've got 2 5s here. And we've got an 8. Okay, this is how the chart's organized. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So interesting. 0 doesn't go anywhere on here really. So you have the arrow of emotional balance here, and you have the arrow of the planner. Okay, arrow of the planner. Arrow of emotional balance. So Emerson, he wasn't completely crazy or anything because he had a great amount of emotional balance. He has the double 5 here. Okay, this is right smack in the middle of yourself. This is balance. Number 5 is sometimes considered the most balanced number, although number 2 is associated with balance as well. Number 5 being right in the middle of the sequence of 9 numbers is considered one of the most balanced numbers. He's got 2 5s there. The double 5 also, I didn't mention 5 and 1 are his hidden, not motivation, but I'm having trouble remembering now. I did so many numbers. His hidden passion, okay? His hidden passion, because they're the most repeated numbers in his name here. If you look, he's got more 5s and more 1s up here than anything. So 1 is repeated a lot. Again, that individualism. Number 5 is ruled by Mercury. You have the Gemini. He's a Gemini sun. You have Mercury is associated with writing, thinking, speaking. Okay, he had over 1,500 lectures in his portfolio. He did 1,500 lectures in his lifetime. So you've got the double 5 also, which is very intense. Okay, the arrow of the planner is organization, as I mentioned. So he's very organized. Again, he organized his writing well. He wasn't a complete scattered Gemini like some Geminis, or totally scattered Mercury energy. Like number 3 is a lot more scattered than number 5, and although number 5 is associated with travel, freedom, travel, and change. They're very hyperactive. They can be intense. They're very versatile. They are artistic, writing, speaking, refinement, all that Mercury stuff. Refining the senses. Okay, they're on the emotional plane. Okay, number 5 is on the emotional plane. So the mastery of sensitive emotional expression. Okay, as I said, the moon is the second most dominant planet in his astrology chart. But you have a lot of intensity with number 5, a lot of hyperactivity with the double 5. So very intense. What else? Let's get into, before I go to the day number, which I'll do after this one, let's do his family karma number. Okay, his family karma number, which is the last name, taking information from the last name only, is equivalent to a number 8. Okay, family karma. Okay, family karma. So this is pretty interesting because number 8 is ruled by Saturn. Okay, Saturn is associated with death. Okay, Emerson, a number of his brothers and sisters died. A number of his children died. Granted, this was back in the 1800s when the longevity rates were a lot lower, but he had plus his wife, his first wife, died. He actually affected him a lot. He went to the grave and actually opened his wife's grave when her corpse was already rotted. It had a profound effect on him. So death, he had a lot of death in his family karma number, or you could also just call this the family number, because I don't associate it as much with karma. But number 8 in general is associated with karma. So number 8 is money, power, authority. Okay. It is the CEO, it's the manager, it's the boss man, it's the harvest, it's big business, it's success, it's, usually CEOs are this number 8. They struggle to express their emotions. So somewhere in his family, which we'll get to, his other struggles to express emotions in some ways because of, he's actually 44% air in his astrology chart, which is, so he's predominantly air energy, predominantly air and fire. Okay, air and fire in his chart. And then then comes water, and his least predominant element is earth. So a lot of air, the thinker, okay, the mind, Gemini, okay, but where, I don't know where I was going with that, but number 8 is impatient, domineering. It's kind of similar to number 1 in some ways. It's ruled by Saturn and the sun more than anything. So analytical, they're driven, they are perseverant like number 1, very perseverant. So let's put up here mainly money, power, authority. Okay, but it's very much personal power. Number 8 is about personal power. So you see that his family is very much about personal power. Okay, and he wrote a lot about, believing in your own personal power and free will to achieve in your life. He's very optimistic, extraordinarily optimistic, okay, in his writing. He's very aphoristic in his writing, a lot of truths. He's harvesting money, power, and authority. I always described his writing also as very authoritative. It's almost like they're just blank statements like, this is the way it is in life, this is the truth, and this is the reality. This is what's real, metaphysically real. This is the truth. There's just statements of fact almost, like he's stating scientific fact. Very authoritative in the way he writes. If you ever read Emerson, you should really notice his authoritative stuff. So, interesting. Saturn and death, okay? See what else I had on here. It's on the emotional plane, right? It's a female, another female energy. It's another builder, okay? The reaper, the old man, things like that. So, what else are we gonna do here? Let's do the day number, and I'm gonna bring this all together at the end here to make you realize, the true profoundness of this whole thing. But for now, let's continue here. So, let's do his life, his day number. Okay, his day number you derive from the day he was born, the 25th, which is equivalent to a number 7. Okay, this is interesting. Here we see philosophy, we see spirituality, we see religion, the priest. Okay, Emerson was a Unitarian minister. Okay, this is your talent. This is considered your talent. Your day number is considered your talent. Okay, day number considered your gift or your talent, your natural abilities. Okay, the philosopher, philosophy, religion, being alone. Okay. Number 7s need a lot of space. They like to be alone. They like to pursue higher education. Okay, he had a degree from Harvard. Okay, he was a Unitarian minister, a pastor. Okay, number 7's all about introspection, being alone. They can be very rebellious also. Super rebellious. Number 7, they can be somewhat rigid. They don't want to take advice. They only want to give advice. It's associated with the planet Neptune. Neptune is that humanitarian, seeking to be compassionate, divine love, divine inspiration. They're very much into research and mystery and education, learning, things like that. Obviously, Emerson was a voracious reader, a voracious researcher, and he actually had a break from the Unitarian Church at one point in his life, which I'll get into, and he rebelled from the orthodoxy that existed in the religious culture of his time. So number 7 does not really like orthodoxy, okay? Nor does Uranus, okay? His main dominant planet in astrology. Uranus is the humanitarian. They're very eccentric. They're unorthodox. They're associated with electricity and things like that. So number 7, you see Emerson, the philosopher. You see his talent for philosophical aphorisms, statements of truth, finding these truths. And number 7s also gain a lot of wisdom because they crave many, many experiences. So Emerson obviously had a talent for procuring many experiences in the intellectual world, okay? Because number 7 is, yes, it's on the physical, practical doing plane, but the number 7's destiny is actually their mind. Even though it's a physical number, their destiny is their mind in a lot of ways. Also, number 8 is all about incorporating the spiritual into the material realm. Emerson did that a lot through studying some science and showing how spirituality is in nature and in science also. So you see that with number 8 too. Number 7 is the most spiritual number, Pythagoras' favorite number. They're also great at using sharp instruments, okay? The pen, the pencil, okay? The writer, Emerson, number 7, okay? It's a very sharp number, right? A very rigid, sharp, direct number. So that's interesting. Let's do his, and I'm going to read some of these awesome excerpts as well. Let's do his karma number, okay? His karma numbers. These are the missing numbers in the name, okay? The missing number for Emerson is equal to a number 2. That's the only missing number in his name numbers. Okay, number 2. Interesting that he's missing this number. Okay, emotions. Number 2 is emotions. Number 2 is patient. It's being receptive. It is associated with the moon. Okay, It is the peacemaker. Okay. It is very nurturing. It's very loving. It's warm. Okay. Being with the predominance of air, you can see a lack of warmth in Emerson. Maybe you can see him as a very, very intellectual person, lacking a little bit of that human kind of warmth in some ways. However, he did have those number sixes. So number 6 is not nearly as warm as number 2, though. Whereas 6 is all about home and family and service. They're not quite as warm at the same time because they're on the mental plane, whereas number 2 is on the emotional plane in the Pythagorean birth chart. So you've got emotions. So the karma numbers is what you lack. Okay. What your weaknesses are, what you need more experience with in this lifetime. What you either overdid or underdid in past lifetimes. Okay, so he lacks maybe a little bit of emotion, warmth, peacemaking, okay, things like that. Interesting. Take a snapshot because I am going to erase this now so that I have room for everything else. Actually, before I do it, let's just do his pinnacles to finish this off. I'm also going to do a few other numbers. Okay, actually, I'm going to just erase a little bit so I have a little more room for this so you can see it well. Okay, emotions, warmth, peace, you got that. You get it. Okay. Just get a little room there. Okay. Hopefully you can see that. Okay, these are his pinnacles. Okay, the energies and the stuff you're going to go through, the vibrations that you're going to go through for a length of many years. Okay, so his first pinnacle, okay, you use the birth date for this, 5, 7, 3 here. So his first pinnacle is a number 3. His next pinnacle is a number 1. Next pinnacle after that, a number 4. Next pinnacle after that is a number 8. So in his case, in Emerson's case, erase a little more so I have some more room here. Emerson's case, 1833. He was 30, I think, right? Yeah, 30 years old. 1833, 39, 48, 57, okay, 57, and onward. Okay, these are the time frames, all right? So 1833, 1842 when he was 39. Okay, I'll put it down here since we can't really fit it. 1842, 1851, and then is number 4 pinnacle, and then 1860. So for the age 0 to 30, he was a number 3, and 1833 was the pinnacle of that number 3. Number 3 is scattered. It's childlike. It is the thinker. It is ruled by Jupiter, so you're often lucky somewhat. He must have been lucky because a number of his family members had already, his brothers and sisters probably had already died. So Jupiter, lucky. Number 3 is also a lot like a Gemini, very much so. Thinking, planning, logic. They can be intolerant. They can be insensitive. They can be very creative. They need expression. They need to express themselves. They're very analytical. They're enthusiastic. They're critical. They're very sociable. So sociable, like like a Libra would be. So also very enthusiastic, optimistic, adaptable, kind of that Mercury slash Jupiter slash Libra kind of qualities, all in number 3. So this is interesting because this is Emerson's life. Okay, his first public lecture was actually in 1833. So that's pretty interesting. First public lecture was in 1833, and so that marked the beginning of a new stage for him as he's transitioning into this number 1 energy, the individual, the self, expressing himself, the pinnacle of his self-expression, number 3, and transitioning into number 1, happening in 1833. 1832 is actually when he resigned from the church. Okay, 1832, he broke off from the church, so he was preparing to go his own way, his own path. He definitely believed in making your own path in life. So he broke off at the end of this cycle because he was about to start a new cycle on his own and listen to his own intuition and his own thoughts into the number 1 energy. Okay, then 1842, so from 1833 to 1842, age 30 to 39, he was the number 1 energy, which is pretty interesting because this is when he was really developing all of his own ideas, his own, and his break from the church was very much in the face of the religious culture of the time. So, interesting stuff. Then he goes into number 4 energy for a period of 9 years, from age 39 to 48. Okay, age 40. Oops, sorry, it's already up there. Age 48. Then, in this time period, number 4 is success and money, laying the foundation for the future harvest that's about to happen in number 8. Okay, this is when he published his first and second series of essays. His second series of essays, The Poet was one of them. Poetry, Libra, art, and all that stuff, was in 1844. Okay, during this number 4 time, his first essay series that he published was in 1841. His second in 1844. Okay, in this period of number 4 is when he laid that foundation for success and money and all that. He did a lot of lectures here, and then coming up in the period of 48 to 57 and onward, that's when he was harvesting everything in number 8. That's when he was really the famous Sage of Concord. They called him the Sage of Concord. And also in 1837, I find it interesting that 1837, which is this period of number 1 energy, okay, 1833 to 1842, okay, 1837 is when he did the American Scholar lecture, which they called the intellectual independence, basically. The Declaration of Intellectual Independence is what Oliver Wendell Holmes described it as. And this was in the number 1 period, independence, number 1, independence, okay? Very interesting. Individualism. Okay, he was at the peak of individualism, independence in the number 1, age 30 to 39 time frame. So, right in line with his life, these pinnacles match right up perfectly. So, really, really interesting that they really line up. And, the other thing I want to mention, too, his surname, okay, Emerson, the surname, which is often thought of to be son of Emery, but that's more the German interpretation. That's wrong in Emerson's case because he was more Anglo-Saxon. The Anglo-Saxon interpretation of the surname Emerson is son of Emar or son of Ethelmar, which actually means son of the noble, or just noble in general, which we'll get to. Emerson was considered somewhat of a noble guy with a very pure spirit, pure soul. He didn't really understand or comprehend or believe in or take account of evil and bad stuff in life. He was so optimistic and so opposite of negativity and bad things in life that he didn't even have an understanding or an appreciation or believe much in evil out there. He had this gap kind of in his thinking. He was so optimistic. So he didn't understand the evils of human nature in a lot of ways because he was such a noble, pure guy in some ways. But he's got a lot of Venus here, so he was somewhat sensual as well. He's got some physical numbers. So, he liked his pie in the morning as opposed to being more rustic like Thoreau, eating beans and, berries and potatoes and, going to live off the land like the true naturalist that Thoreau was. Emerson was a little more refined in home life and, things like that. So, interesting. Let's keep going here. I wonder if I missed anything so far. I'm sure I'll come up with some more stuff. Yeah. Okay, so interesting stuff. Let's get rid of some of this. Okay. A normal chart will have, the charts that I do are usually about 12 numbers on a primary chart. I offer 3 different charts, though, so if you'd like a chart, hit me up at collinchi@gmail.com. I do offer personal charts. I offer compatibility charts. I've done this numerology stuff for a little bit now, so I have a pretty good idea of what I'm doing with it. Let's go into a couple of other things here. Okay, let's look at the name Waldo, which is equivalent to, let's see, 5, 1, 3, 4, 6 equals the number 1. Again, the individual. He actually went by Waldo. He decided to go by the name Waldo rather than Ralph. However, Ralph, 9, 1, 3, 7, 8 is equal to a number 1 also. Okay, so he's got some number 1s. He's got a lot of number 1s going on there. Again, his hidden passion is number 1 and 5. Okay, the individual, single-minded, independence, leadership. Okay, he was the leader of the Transcendental Movement, leader in a lot of ways, and leader in thought in his time frame. So then we have Ralph Emerson, which is considered your minor expression number. So you got 9, 1, 3, 7, 8, 5, 4, 5, 9, 1, 6, 5 is equal to a number 9. Okay, number 9. Minor expression is that humanitarian quality. Number 9 is the humanitarian. It's dutiful, responsible. Okay, 3, 6, and 9 are very similar. Okay, 6 is kind of like number 9, service, responsibility. Number 9 can be very ambitious. You see a lot of ambition in his chart. We saw the 8 and the 1, very ambitious. We saw the 7, which is pretty ambitious as well. Now we have a little bit more ambition with that 9, but you see the humanitarian Uranus coming out there, okay? So, humanitarian, okay? Then we've got his balance number, which is derived from the initials, R.W.E. Okay, we got 9, 5, 5. is equal to a number 1. How surprising. More number 1s for Emerson, okay? Balance number is the number that you come to when you're out of balance. So if you're really, really out of balance, and when Emerson was feeling out of balance, he obviously went towards being self-reliant. I mean, you would think that you would have to be. If you lose a lot of people in your life and you constantly, the material world is crumbling around you in a lot of ways. All the people are dying, your brothers and sisters are dying, your sons and daughters are dying, and your wife is dying. You're going to rely a little bit less on external circumstances and a little bit more on your own self, okay? Number 9 also has that need to rely on the eternal rather than the material. They need to actually detach from the physical material realm, and they need to learn to detach from people and just serve, okay? The ultimate brotherly love, unconditional love, and just service. So self-reliance, again, right there it is. His challenge numbers were number 2, actually, challenge numbers were number 2, 4, 2, and 2. Okay, he was very challenged by partnership and cooperation, which we saw apparent in his karma number as well. Challenge numbers. Okay, so maybe he wasn't, he had to go through those challenges of being cooperative a lot. And so he had this pull between him wanting to go his own direction, be his own self, and cooperating with people, and cooperating in life and with society. He had a lot of commentary on society. So partnership, the moon, emotions, very challenged. His emotions were very challenged by all the deaths that he had to face, right? So, interesting. He also had rational thought number, okay, which is Ralph, first name and the day number combined, was equivalent to a number 8, okay? Rational thought number. Okay, this is how you think. Again, number 8 is money, power, and authority. Okay, so he thought in a very incorporating spiritual into material values, spiritual values into material values, and he really thought in a very authoritative manner that this is the way it is, and that's why he wrote that way. So, interesting stuff. Authority. Okay. Very much thinking about business and building something for the future and being a leader. Okay, power, personal power. This is the way it is. Things like that. His maturity number, okay, which is life path and the destiny, was equal to a number 5. So again, we have that number 5 again. He had the double 5s in his Pythagorean birth chart. Now he's got the 5 again, Mercury showing up again in his maturity number. So this is the number. This is the number that you reach when you're most mature. So freedom, travel, change. He traveled to Europe 3 different times in his lifetime. So he did do a good amount of travel. He actually traveled to Florida, St. Augustine, in seeking warmer climates because he had some ailing health problems. Sometimes Mercury, Virgo, is associated with battling health problems. And work, and number 5 is also a very much a worker. They can exhaust themselves through too much work as well, like number 4, very hyperactive. So his nerves were getting the best of him. He developed some eye problem. They thought he had rheumatism, things like this. But his maturity number, when he became more and more mature, he started to travel a little more. He started to really be more that more mastering of that sensitive expression, okay, of the emotions, okay, which was a big part of what his writing was all about. So Mercury, he's becoming himself, really. Mercury rules Gemini. It rules Virgo. Okay, his maturity number is, a big part. Number 5 was a big part of who he was, too. So last but not least, and then I'm going to move into some quotes and things, and finish some things up here. Last but not least, let's do his, let's see, one more thing here. What am I missing here? What am I missing? Oh, his subconscious self number. Okay, that's the last main number I'm going to do. And then we'll move on. And then I'll finish this talk up and it'll be great. Okay? Hope you appreciate this, Emerson enthusiasts. Because this doesn't exist out there, as far as I know or have seen. So, subconscious self number. The actual amount of numbers in his name equals a number 8 again. Okay, he's got that number 8 in there, folks. Saturn, he's definitely got a little bit of Saturn in there. However, again, astrology I don't think quite matches up exactly. But number 8's also the Sun, Saturn. It doesn't quite exactly match up, though. So you got to think about it in a different way. But this is his subconscious self number. So what's least conscious in his... It's the least conscious. This is more of his id, okay? Rather than his ego. Right? It's the least conscious part of him. He has that, so it's kind of like his roots, where he's coming from in a lot of ways. That authority, that power, that money, that personal power. 8's a very successful number. This is why this guy was such a success. He's got these number 8's in here. Okay? He was a huge success. And he's still well known many, many years later. But this is really interesting because his... Again, this is, number 8 is, it's karma, money, power, authority. But it's interesting because his astrology, his Imam Coeli, which is considered the least conscious part, it's the bottom of the sky or the bottom of heaven in astrology. It's considered the least conscious part of his personality, is number 8. It is Capricorn. Saturn rules Capricorn. Okay? His Imam Coeli, I see, is Saturn or Capricorn. Okay? Cap. And, 8. Okay, so that aligns perfectly with his astrology, because number 8 is ruled by Saturn. Okay, death. It's also considered your home and your family and your roots. Again, a lot of death. The Grim Reaper, Saturn, okay, in his family home life. Okay, you can see it apparent right there. Interesting stuff. So that's the main stuff with Emerson. Let me just go through anything I happen to miss and just kind of wrap things up, mention some things, and then I'm going to do a few quotes from his actual essays that kind of illustrate some of his numerology. Very, very interesting stuff. His hemispheres in his chart were mainly southern. The main percentage of his hemispheres in astrology, makeup of where his planets are in his zodiac wheel in his chart, are in the southern region, okay, which is actually the top of your chart in astrology, which is the more outward kind of, rather than the introvert, it's considered more the extroverted world. It's considered action and doing and showing people what you've done in life. That's why he wrote and lectured. Yes, he had this pull between wanting solitude and wanting to be alone in order to be a writer, but the main purpose was to show everybody and prove to people his brilliance and his writing ability and his lecturing ability, to have things visible. Okay, it's the more visible, extroverted, outside kind of part of the chart. So he had more action. That's where you can see that fire, element of fire, which was his second most predominant element in his astrology chart. Interesting. Predominantly southeastern, to be exact. The southeastern region houses 10, 11, 12, which is goals, ambitions, the humanitarian, assertion, self-assertion, asserting himself. Okay, that's what the southeastern portion of your zodiac chart is all about. Okay, so you see that humanitarian again there with Uranus. Aquarius, that's Aquarius, Capricorn, and Pisces in the 10th, 11th, 12th. So, interesting there. What else did I miss here? I found it interesting that Saint Emmerus is a French saint of the 8th century. Okay, I found this when I was researching the surname Emerson. Emerson, the family number of Emerson being a number 8. And then you got Saint Emmerus of the 8th century. Interesting. He lived till he was 78 years old, which equals a number 6. You saw all those number 6s in his chart. Pretty cool. And actually right now I just want to mention too that his personal year right now would be equivalent to a number 11 / a number 2. Just in this time frame right now, me speaking right now, in 2016 he would be a number 2. So whatever you take from that. See what else I didn't mention. Let's do some reading of a few of his things here, and we'll finish it up. Okay. Detect and watch that gleam of light which flashes across your mind from within. Intuition. Listen to your intuition. Abide by your spontaneous impression. Okay, spontaneous. Number 1 is spontaneous. We saw the prevalence of number 1 in his chart. Okay, it's the initiating spark, spontaneity. He really said spontaneity. He really championed spontaneity a lot. Trust thyself, as I said. So you got that stuff. Do not craze yourself with thinking, but go about your business anywhere. Life is not intellectual or critical, but sturdy. Its chief good is for well-mixed people who can enjoy what they find without question. So you can see his personality number 4 there kind of coming out, like realizing that he's very intellectual and can be critical. Number 4 is very sturdy and stable number. You can see maybe his personality almost fighting with his airiness and his, overabundance of intellectual, kind of telling himself, like, don't study life so much, go out there and, he had this other quote that, life should not be lived in study completely, but actually live life, So you see the number 4 there with the sturdy mention. Life is not intellectual or critical, but sturdy. You see his personality coming through there, maybe fighting with some of other parts of his self. Self-respect is the early form in which greatness appears. Okay, self-respect. Okay, that's that self, that ego, that number 1. Okay, respecting your own true self, your own inspiration, and living up to that, living by that. The poet cannot see a natural phenomenon which does not express to him correspondent fact in his mental experience. He is made aware of a power to carry on and complete the metamorphosis of natural into spiritual facts. You see that number 8, incorporating spiritual into nature, spirituality into materialism. Okay, metamorphosis of natural into spiritual facts. Okay, you see it there in number 8, is that quote. Our spontaneous action is always the best. You cannot, with your best deliberation and heed, come so close to any question as your spontaneous glance shall bring you, whilst you rise from your bed or walk abroad in the morning after meditating the matter before sleep on the previous night. Okay, our spontaneous action is always the best. You see that number 1, spontaneity there. Okay. I had better never see a book than to be warped by its attraction clean out of my own orbit and made a satellite instead of a system. The one thing in the world of value is the active soul. Okay, the one thing in the world of value is the active soul. You see the action. Number 1 is action. Number 5 is action. The active, very hyperactive. Number 3 can be more active. You see the soul active sees absolute truth. He mentions activity a lot. He's really a champion for activity and action also. Okay. Interesting. Creative. Okay. He mentions creativity quite a bit as well. Number 1 is creative. Number 3 is creative. Number 5 is creative. Number 6 is creative. I know not, but I fear it not, for my relation to them is so pure that we hold by simple affinity, and the genius of my life being thus social, the same affinity will exert its energy on whosoever is as noble as these men and women, wherever I may be. You see the nobility, the surname, Emerson, noble. You see the Gemini, you see the southern hemisphere here, the genius of my life being thus social. Okay, Geminis are very social. Libras are very social. Libra was one of the dominant signs. It's the main dominant sign in astrology. Okay, you see the social aspect in the southern hemisphere being more the outward social life rather than the introverted home life. Okay, interesting. Okay, this is from Clubs, his essay called Clubs. So thought is the native air of the mind, yet pure it is a poison to our mixed constitution, and soon burns up the bone house of man, unless tempered with affection and coarse practice in the material world. You see number 2 and number 8 here. You see almost his karma coming out. Number 2, realizing that he needs to be more affectionate, and mentioning the material world. Again, thought and bringing affection into the material world. You see number 8 there, kind of material, the spiritual into the material again. Interesting. The spirit sports with time. Okay, this was from one of his other essays, another quote. Okay, the spirit sports with time, can crowd eternity into an hour or stretch an hour into eternity. Okay, he says, yet time and space are but inverse measures of the force of the soul. The spirit sports with time. Number 1 is associated with sports. Number 8 is associated with time because Saturn is associated with time. Okay, so you see number 1 and number 8 right there. The spirit sports with time. Okay, he mentions sports. He mentions time. Okay, number 1 and number 8. Interesting. Character is the moral order seen through the medium of an individual nature. Character is the moral order seen through the medium of an individual nature. You see number 6 and you see number 1 there. Number 6 is very ethical. They're very good people. They don't have a whole lot of problems necessarily. They're not really too crazy. They're pretty balanced and pretty, sometimes they can have some fear and anxiety and worry too much and depression and things, but they're very moral. They have a good sense of ethics and judgment. Okay. So you see it there, the moral order seen through the medium of an individual nature. Individual, number 1. Okay, he mentions a lot of things here that are quite interesting. Okay, when you look at them through this lens of numerology and astrology. Okay, a lot of his repeated words in the essay Self-Reliance are self and virtue. Okay, good, man, great, day, nature, soul, truth, genius, world, obey, speak, thought, conformity, trust, God, society, action, and reliance. Those are the top 20 most repeated words according to my analysis of self-reliance. So you see, kind of, you get an idea of the words he's repeating in that, what he's trying to say, and who he is. Nature, you know, things like that. Number 5 definitely needs a lot of nature to kind of relax all their nervousness and their hyperactivity. Okay, the nerves are a little overactive in number 5. That was one of his hidden passions, one of the most repeated numbers in his actual name. So they need a lot of nature. That's why he felt so good in nature also, because he's got that nervous nervous energy that a Gemini has, and that a Virgo has, and that a number 5 has, and a number 3 has. Okay, very scattered and overwhelmed, and just, you know, things like that, edgy and nervy. So you can see why nature would soothe people, you know, like that. Just be, you know, the sounds and the blue sky, and the blue having a calming effect, boosting serotonin and things like that. Interesting. So this has been Emersonian. Collin Chi, certified nutritional consultant. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Numerologer. If you would like a nutritional consultation or a numerology chart, hit me up, collinchi@gmail.com. We'll put a link in the description below. I'm also going to put a link in the description for some of the numerology shirts and Emerson shirts that I've made. If you want to check it out, I got some websites you can buy some shirts. Awesome stuff. Hope you enjoyed it. Emerson's an amazing guy. And hit me up and subscribe and like. If you subscribe, you will get updates on the each video we do. You'll get an email updating you when we post a video. So like and subscribe. Hope you enjoyed it. As always, Collin Chi, certified nutritional consultant, numerologer. Rise. Emersonian.